Right. So now if we, kind of look at contractor needs, we need to put people together with what the work needs to be done, and we need to have, we need performance. And so a lot of times, and this is a simple way of looking at it, is at kind of the bottom of the pyramid. We have a lot of people that are in a role and they are doing work to a standard, and that's the foundation that the company is built on. And then there's a much smaller layer of people that are, say, supervising them. They are refining the systems, they're training those people, they're managing to the standards. That's the quality control and the systems, the quality assurance aspects of it. And that's that role of that frontline manager. And then you move up a layer, and you have the people that are setting the standards and aligning them with strategy, systems, and structure. And that's a really small group of people. Now it's pretty easy to go sit there and have, say, like, oh, well, we didn't get this outcome. If somebody didn't perform to standard, and so or the businesses are performing well, so therefore it must be the people. And but there's really five different things that all have to go together to produce a business outcome. And I think, we're not going to dive deep on this, but it's important to go through there and understand that business outcomes are really a product. It's a choice one multiplied by choice two, by choice three, by choice four and five. And it's one of our team members, Courtney, always says, like, do you have any zero multipliers on here? And the first one is strategic choices. If you have to choose to be in the right markets. You can be the most effective horseshoe manufacturer on the planet, but circa early 1900s, that was not a winning strategic choice.
Right.
Your business was going to slowly decline no matter how operationally effective you were. The second thing is, you have to have these standards for performance have to be integrated into a viable business model and align with the strategy. So what does that really mean? It means that if, let's say, we have that standard of performance of 100 feet per hour, and that's kind of like a one-sided standard, that there's a couple other things that need to go with that. What's the crew cost to get there? So do I get 100 feet per hour with a crew cost that costs $10,000 a day, or 100 feet per hour with a crew that costs $30,000 a day? Because those are two very different things. So it's really not just a feet per hour or whatever it is. There's a cost element that goes with that as well. And those things all have to fit together in a business model that's viable. So if the market is only willing to pay $100 a foot for this thing, but my standard, it comes in at $125 a foot, it's just not a viable business model. It's quite, that it's that simple. So now you can't lie to it. You can't say, well, the market only pays $100 a foot. I mean, we see this all the time, right? People talk about winning work. Okay, the market only pays $100 a foot for this thing. We can only install it for $125 a foot. So unless you have a really clear strategy and plan that over a relatively short period of time, you're going to be able to bring your production costs down for that particular thing down to $100 a foot or less, the reality is you just don't have a viable business model. And yet you see people doing it all the time. They start to sell a project for what the market will bear rather than what they can actually perform it at, and then then finding opportunities that fit. So anyways, 1 and 2 are really kind of big parts of this outcome. And then we've got to have a system, like you said, the steps 3, 4, 5, where you have these procedures all the way up through workflows and up through management systems that create these consistent outcomes to the standard. How do we make sure that we're consistently performing this thing for $100 a foot? Then you get into the management structure that supports those systems and strategy. And notice that these were the management structure comes after systems. You don't put the structure in place and then figure out the system. You put the systems in place, and then you figure out the structure that best supports the system. And then that structure has to support a combination of the system, the strategy, and the organizational development. And we'll dive into that a little bit further. But if you're only getting the task done, but you're not developing the people, you will achieve a business outcome, but you will only achieve it in a really short period of time, because you won't be developing the people for what tomorrow's growth looks like. And then 5, the percentage of people that actually perform their jobs to the standards for their role. That's the 5th multiplier. But that's the most visible one. That's the one that we
Yeah.
always want to go to, because that's the visible outcome, and so we always want to go to that. And so we put a whole lot of weight on it. But the truth is, it's the one that's actually the least weighted within all of these, as far as outcomes go. So, anyways, that was a lot, Sue. I probably did a horrible job of describing that
No,
one. But
no, I was just stuck back on number 4, right? Because number 4 is really, in my mind, usually when I end up talking to a contractor, the wheels on their bus are are loose and shaky and maybe falling off because of some extreme growth. People are very task oriented, and the organization itself has not grown enough. It's grown in people count, but it's not grown enough to support, just like it says, the systems. There's probably not much of a strategy. Their strategy's been, let's take all the work we can take. And
right,
now you've hired a bunch of people, and now these people are really untethered, because they don't know what the standards are, because the growth has been so much, and it's been hurry, 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 build this one, this one, this one. And yeah, that's just where I tend to see the wheels fall off the bus. So number 5, although a lot of times not super visible, is really where you can see we have a standard, we have people performing to it, and we know that, right? That's where the knowledge of all this stuff kind of finally culminates, it seems.
and I think, just like you pointed out on the standards piece, you don't. This is not a checklist. You don't do
Right,
like, okay, we're going to do everything in number 1 perfectly, then we're going to go to number 2. I mean, these are
right.
things that happen in a continuous cycle and get continually better, and they change over time. But business outcomes are truly a product of all 5 of these.
Yep.
So as we get in and we're talking about it, people performing to the standard, and we hear that a lot. The breakdown in 4 culminates in somebody usually saying so and so is not doing their job, and a lot of times it's because so and so didn't even know they were supposed to do that job, or they were overloaded. Nobody's paying attention to the capacity side of it. And
Yeah.
the other day, I was in and here's the hard part, and we'll get into biases and stuff in a little bit, but I think I'm a reasonably driven person and everything. So if I see a book like Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink, I'm like, yeah, that's a great book. So I'm like in this guy's office, and he's vice president, and he's got a half dozen copies of the book in his office. Good book, Extreme Ownership. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have extreme ownership, but if you don't have a process in place, and now you have 5 or 6 people that are doing the same role, like say project management, and you've changed the structure a
Yeah.
bit, extreme ownership can actually it can make a lot of the problems a lot worse, because everybody's like, all
Right.
right, I just got to knuckle down and do it. And you see the lights burning until 7 or 8 p.m. And that eventually just burns people out. That makes people open to the recruiter that's calling.
That's right.
Some people just end up leaving. So, you see it, and then they're like, well, so-and-so wasn't performing. They weren't doing that. And you're like, they were working really hard. They weren't doing what needed to be done, but that's not necessarily their fault.
That's right.
So that's,
Because
like you said, number 4.
typically whose fault is it? It's the manager.
The manager. Yep. Which, as you said, that's where the breakdown occurs in
Yeah.
number 4.
Yep.
So anyways, this starts to create the foundation. We're going to be back and forth between, the person and the contractor and the career and all that, throughout the rest of this. Which this is where you come in, where the talent value stream pulls this together.
Well, I tell you, just in all the conversations that we've had over the last, half a dozen years, it's interesting how the talent value stream just kind of was the organic visual response to all of those conversations, right? Because yes, on the left-hand side here, right, contractors exist to build projects, but it's those people that actually build the projects. But getting them in, helping them to be the person they want to be, means that the organization has to take more than just a, hey, let's hire some people kind of approach, right? So in here, we want to make sure that in watching your talent and looking at it as the full value stream from the time you're planning the people you need to hire, the positions you need to hire, who you need to hire, looking at it, whether you're a stage 1 contractor, stage 6 contractor, right? What does that planning look like? What is your onboarding, or sorry, what's your recruit to hire going to look like? Where are you going to find these people? What are you going to tell them to come to work for you, right? What is it that is going to get them to come to work for you? What does that onboarding look like? Is it several several people I had to work with that I was out in trailers all the time in the field, and those trailers sometimes were the double wides, and we weren't hooked up to any of the facilities, but one of them had always been a bathroom. And what did they do? We built a desk over the bathroom, and somebody got that office. Is that really a really good onboarding process that they got to sit in the makeshift isn't a bathroom anymore kind of thing? Now, maybe, but there's probably an explanation that needs to go with that, right?
I see some efficiency there.
Well, there was some efficiency there, but it's kind of hard to call home and tell your folks that you got this great job, and yet you're sitting in the what could be, if hooked up, the bathroom. So really, what are the optics when people come? Really, why do they want to come, and how can we make them feel like this is a place for them, right? How can we explain that culture fit? How can we really bring them in? And then once they're there, how do we keep them, right? What do we do for training? What do we do for development? And development is both the depth of professional development, the trajectory of leadership development, succession planning, performance management. How do we keep people, again, in this loop of, and it's all retention, right? They're producing, they're performing, but it's all about retention. How do we keep them? And then when people are ready to go, how do we put together a decent offboarding plan that all that institutional knowledge and expertise and all of that just doesn't go with them? How can we make that more of a slide out the door as opposed to the cliff, right? Here's your gold watch, get out. Because as long as talent is your constraint, where you can't grow because you don't have enough people, somewhere in this talent value stream, and maybe numerous places, is where we're missing the boat. Because when you don't have the talent, you cannot build the work. I know, and David, I'm sure you know it too. I know a lot of people, they're like, okay, we're going to bid these next 3 or 4 or 5 jobs. They pick up 2 of them, and the client asks, okay, so when can you start? And they're looking now, they're looking at their talent and going, who do we have that can build this?
Right.
They probably have the excavators. They probably have, the loaders, but they don't have the people. So this is imperative to make sure that people are there for growth and not the constraint that keeps you from growth.
And as bad as we talk about the supply chain issues now and how the lead times on certain materials, the lead time on highly specialized talent,
Yeah.
technical talent, and highly experienced leadership talent. Ooh, yeah, there's a really a bad supply chain problem going on there. That's not
That's
going to
right.
get better for the next. This is not a matter of freeing up some chip making capacity or something. That won't get better for about the next 15 plus years. So
Right.
that planning is a really big deal. And then
Yes.
trying to match up, which we'll get to with the strategy discussion, but trying to match up your resources with your opportunities really well.
Yep.
So we covered this a lot more in a lot more depth last time. So
Right.
if you missed it, go back, go watch talent value stream piece.